Peace, everyone. Yeah, normally we would be saying good evening, but you know, still sunlight out. So yeah, we recently had our spring equinox, and now it's less knocks. The knocks ain't so equal no more. But peace and welcome to the space, everyone. Just put this phone on silent. Yeah, so here we are again, another SHEMA Anu, and of course I am Master Menelek. And we are still in the topic of economics, right? Still dealing with the chapter of economics. So, peace to you, yeah. Oh, give thanks, loud and clear. Good. How are you? How's your storm been going? Willfully, everyone's storm been going, progressively, and they're making some movements towards something, you know. Um, Usually when you ask people how they doing, it's like, I'm all right. Just getting by. you know, there's not like, you know, there's no enthusiasm in the response. It's usually like, why you even ask me that? I was trying not to think about it. But yeah, willfully you're all doing well. I see everyone piling into the space. Peace, Ross Kush. Peace, Imanaya. Peace. My name is Precious. Peace, Alexandria. Alexandria Elaine. Peace, Sister Deidre. Peace, Sister Maria. Peace, Emma Sequoia. Peace, Zach Lap. Aki Zach. Things are going good on your end. All right, good, getting better. Um, yeah, I'm in a more organized sort of headspace. It's funny. I revisited one of my old favorite books. It's called The War of Art. Just dealing with if you decide you're going to do something, then do it. But the resistance that you encounter, you have to expect it, And then you would come out, Sister Deidre made us aware of your recent podcast, which is on tfuya.com. You know, TFUya released another podcast entitled The Power of One, and it deals with something similar to what we're dealing with tonight. Both of them actually. And so we're going to get into it. Of course, we usually start with a reading of the preface. So I should already have this pulled up. Speaking of being organized, right? Peace out to Gertrude. Okay, there we go. So the preface reads, this book is not to be read only once. The words in this volume are delicately selected. Turn it this way. The words in this volume are delicately selected and implanted as a code to unlock the treasured fabric of the own brain, an undeniable spirit of reformation and mercy. Read the words of this book of knowledge out loud, knowledge and wisdom out loud, as you apprehend what is departing from your mouth, which is key for tonight. As you apprehend what is departing from your mouth, you will organize your environment and body aura with the property of this dedicated text. Okay, understanding is an earned perception. You may read a section of this tome and it may not penetrate today. Apprenticeship is for you to reflect on humility, discuss the conviction grasp of wisdom will not develop in emptiness. When you study this book, you will become enlightened of the ways of Anu, but you must work for your own circumspection by applying what you are being instructed to do. It is only then that wisdom will be yours to stand on with a grip of discernment. This publication should be read daily. Listen to each line and examine it. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated, and this manuscript provides the exactitude that will one day become your standard of natural sense. Yeah, man. So let's get it. Chief Yuya, lots of times resistance is nothing but a wicked spirit seeking for you to affirm its power in your psyche. Once you realize wickedness has no inherent power, you overcome resistance. You know, this is true. This is true. Yeah, man. And this is one of the major reasons why this particular paragraph is so important, right? And so here we go, right? This is the paragraph that we're dealing with now. Last strong, the sisters spoke on not being wage earners. You know, if you are going to work with someone, you work with an apprenticeship in mind. You come in as an apprentice and you work for however long you need to learn the ins and outs of that industry. Then you branch off and on your own, but not like in a scumbag way. You take all the secrets and run. But we are a community of professionals. Manual workers should only exist for one generation within Anu. The skills of manual work should never be shunned. All Anu should be skilled craftspersons. Our children must be educated in a manner so that they are not forced to work alongside those who are of contrary spirit and culture. Their careers should lead them into positions of power. The Anu child's learning must ensure that they are provided lucrative careers ahead of their fields. Without education, we are destined for poverty. And that, like, it's like a series of very direct statements, right? Like, and each one of these statements helps to shape how we should be viewing our career paths and our professionalism, And it states right here, we are a community of professionals. So what does that mean? It means that, what's a professional is someone who professes, right? So to profess something, it speaks, right? And you're speaking, basically, you're professing what it is you are or what it is that you do. Like immediately I thought of 300. What is your profession? And besides, besides the usual, well, this is what I do at my job. What you do at your job and your profession aren't necessarily the same thing. Your profession could be, you could be a writer, but right now things are kind of slow. You're in between books, so you may work at McDonald's. So what has more power? Is it I'm a writer or I'm a cashier? So your profession and what you say that you are actually empowers you to move forward in a more direct and a less amorphous and like scattershot type of way. So it was very important in the preface, when you speak, you're actually changing your aura. You're charging your aura to move into a certain direction, which is why you should read this book daily and why you should read it out loud. It's not just because, Chief said so. It's not like Stone Cold. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I got to read it because Chief said it. So you're actually changing your reality. More focused the changes in your reality are going to be, and it's simple as like I would say to I said to someone once, if you say what it is you really need out loud and stop whispering it or holding it in your head, you'd be surprised at what happens. Like if you say, I want to do this or I need to do this, if you say it out loud, and they said it, and a couple of days later, someone called them, opportunity came knocking, and we sort of stifle ourselves in that sense. Chief had mentioned in his podcast earlier, like if he were going to hire someone, he was giving an example. If he was going to hire someone and he offered them a certain amount, you know, would they take it? It's like, I'm going to offer you this amount of digits. It's like 1 digit, 2 digit, 3 digit. You go all the way up to 7 digits, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't expect that much. It's like, yeah, but it's 7 zeros. You know, if you put a one at the end, it's still 7 digits. It's just 6 zeros in front of the 7th digit, which is a one. But in this instance now, if someone says, I'm going to give you 7 digits, and you say, I didn't expect that much, or they say 6 digits, 5 digits, I didn't expect that much, the I didn't expect that much was something that rang true for me, because I had the conversation twice today of how sometimes if you take less than what you are worth, you begin to lower your value as opposed to raising your standards. Like that was like the gist of it. And you may look at yourself as a 3-figure person or 4-figure person. So over here, if you say, I make 3 figures, these are the 3 figures. Someone may say, oh, that's good. You got a good job. But is it your profession? Do you have any sort of upward mobility? Because we're supposed to be at the heads of the field, but what are you the head of? Is it something that is not speaking to what's, intrinsically inside of you? And because you can't profess something if it's not already in you, and have it be true. If you profess something and it's not in you, then it's not, even if it does manifest, it doesn't last. It's not sustainable. So my first question is, are you a professional? Do you speak to what it is that you do, or do you speak to what your current, what the label of your employment is? Which are two different things. Because if we're talking about professionals and if we're talking about craftspersons, then we have to realize that these are people who actually have a craft. They have something that they actually do, and they work at, and they improve it, and they sharpen it, and they try new things, and they break new ground. I don't know if you have aspirations to be SpongeBob, but certain things, it's only so far you could go flipping burgers, working for someone else, and I don't know, maybe friends, I don't know, but you won't do it at the lowest level of that ladder, so I'm gonna leave that question there. Akizak says, I would even say being a professional on, I guess, saying being a professional is how one conducts themselves, so one can overcome resistance, like stated, not having a juvenile response. Yeah, the juvenile response could be, why me, or I don't feel like doing it, I'm tired, I'll do it later. That's not necessarily a professional. Professional is someone who actually does what they need to do in a way that that meets their standards. You're trying to do things to the best of your abilities. Always, you're bringing maximum effort to each endeavor. Not maximum in terms of you burn yourself out, but maximum in terms of you take it as far as you can. This goes And wherever that takes you, you're able to ride with it because you're not necessarily doing just enough so you get paid for it. You're doing as much as you can because you want to see how far you can push it. You keep pushing. And yeah, Chief said, I'm a professional because I have made vows that have shaped the ethics of my personal brand, code, and values I live by. What comes out of my mouth forms the base of my liberty. Yeah, exactly. And your profession is your vow. You know, um, like Chief said, profession is also about you're saying what something is. Um, One of the things I think about when speech comes to mind is the first letter, yay be yay and nay be nay. You know, it made me think about when you're speaking. It's like when you say something, this is what it is. You're not saying it because you're trying to find a workaround or you keep talking and you say something that you think is a good wave to ride on. It's like, I'll just ride on that wave and it sounds good. Hopefully it sounds good to them and they just leave me alone. You're saying something because you understand saying something with the cognizance of the weight that words have. So you're very selective with your speech, and you even limit your speech to make sure that you don't create something um, unconsciously. Top tier speaker says, I am not a professional, would like to work towards being one. Okay. I'll come back to that. First says to profess also sets the tone of ownership. So often we say, this is just my job. This doesn't acknowledge the power of words or your responsibility to be a professional. Right. And I go back to top tier speakers comment because a lot of times we we refuse to be professionals, and sometimes we think that it's an unattainable goal. We may see it as something that you have to really strive for or you have to really sacrifice for, and that's true. But what's not true is that it's unattainable. And I'm not saying that you're saying it, but oftentimes, like even myself, I use myself as an example. If how like they say when you do a resume, you only add the jobs that are relevant, because if you add all of the jobs, no one's going to be interested in looking at it. Like, I didn't get it when I was younger and just getting out of school. I get it now um, because I've worked at so many different places for varying lengths of time. And I'm realizing that my resume shouldn't be um, as full of a lot of things that it is full of. I realized that a lot of the jobs that I took, they don't necessarily have anything to do with my profession, but they had something to do with what I was professing. I don't have any money, so I need a job. That's a common profession, or that's a common statement that we sort of use to perpetuate ourselves. Uh, yeah, that's crazy. We only get two answers. Yeah, it's a um, not open-ended question. Are you a professional? Do you do what you say that you are? And if not, then how did you get misaligned? Like in my case, when I was younger, I knew I was an artist. I knew that this is something that this is just what I do. It wasn't like it didn't need any qualifying statements like I'm an artist because, or I'm an artist because they make a lot of money, or I'm an artist because I can become famous, or I'm an artist because I do stuff and people like it. People say it look good, so I guess I must be an artist. It's like, nah, this is what I am. You know, I used to go in the corner and hide to do my stuff so no one would bother me. But 90% of my jobs had nothing to do with that profession. You know, all of them had something to do with keeping bills at bay, or they had something to do with um, just trying to catch a break. You know what I mean? It wasn't about I'm doing this because it's furthering my skills, or I'm doing this because it allows me to actually advance in this field. Because another thing is, when you're living in a certain poverty mindset, you don't necessarily think about climbing a ladder. You think about keeping your head above water, which is why you need to reorient yourself. You know, um, yeah, but manual workers should only exist for one generation within Anu. Why only one generation? Well, why would you stay at that level? You know, not to say that manual workers, again, we're not shunning manual work, but if you are a manual worker, you know, you learn the skills and everything, but you don't necessarily have to swing a hammer for the rest of your life. You learn how to swing a hammer, you learn how to build a house. Once you know how it's done, you can now move into the space where you're telling other people how to do it, or you're the one who's organizing a team that says, okay, we're building this next, we're building that next. You know, there has to be upward mobility instead of what Chief would often refer to as a lateral movement. You know, you're moving side to side. Anu Radio says, I'm a professional in the making. Lack of consistency and integrity has made me unprofessional. All right. Professional in the making, how? It's like Tom and Jerry. Is you is or is you ain't? You know? Um, but yeah, professional in terms of how you move, sure. Yeah, you can definitely use refinement. But the thing about a professional is that's how they think. I can always use refinement. You know, it's not like I apply for a job, I show my best, and as soon as I get, you know, past my probationary period, or even right after I get hired, I just let it all hang out. You know, it's like someone with a gut. You know, you ever see the dudes who have like this big um, pot belly, and they see an attractive female, they just suck at it. You know, they just let it out when she's out of sight, because you're not moving authentically. You're trying to be something right now, and what that tends to manifest as is either you start chasing very low hanging fruit. Which means you start chasing trends. So rather than doing something that's original and that comes from within, you start doing what you see other people doing, or this is what's popular, or this is what's in. You know, um, not saying that you shouldn't cover those bases, but you have a level of complacency when it comes to your standards, because it's like, this doesn't live up to my standards, but you put it out anyway. You know, you put it out anyway. But it's like you have a thought in your mind, and you see something, and you're like, something's off there, you know, and you don't quite know what it is. And you make, rather than really watching the situation, or being very careful with your words, you just blurt it out. You know, you look pregnant. It's like, nah, you gotta really be tactful and make sure that what it is that comes out of you represents what you are, as opposed to letting something come out of you that doesn't necessarily represent what you are, but it represents what you think you lack. Um, yeah, so Imanaya says, inconsistent professional. I don't share what I do with many. What do you do? You know, what are you doing, Imanaya? I heard you talk about work. I mean, I saw you talk about work a couple of times, but I don't know what you do. You know, um, And it's true for a lot of people. You can look at people and you can't necessarily tell what they do by the way that they move. And I haven't seen much of you in Manila, but just as an example, you see people and you don't necessarily know what they do based on how they move. Like their brand isn't like um, dripping off of them, you know. And it made me that sort of concept makes me think of houses and basically what they represent. And when I'm talking about houses, I'm talking about like Game of Thrones, House of Stark or House of Lannister. They have things that make them. Um, they have things that set them apart. They have a family mission statement. They have a sigil. Or a symbol. They have things that signify what they are. Um, Precious says she missed the question. That's the question right there, Precious. Are you a professional? Oh, I know Radio already put it in. Okay. Peace, Hamza L. MGC Randy says, I'm a professional. I continue to build on my craft and expand in my array of skills. Okay. Precious says she's not a professional. The connection and adherence to the idea of being a wage earner hindered my professional development. Okay. Just from the first 4 words, yeah, this is very important. We needn't be apologetic when we speak to the careers, vocations required in our community. Original youth are given too much freedom of choice when it comes to that and are coerced into servant careers. Yeah. When it comes to the culture over here in the Bahamas and how education is treated, we can see a lot of evidence of that with parents, especially lower wage earning parents tend to push their children towards. Some of them strive to be that one and only generation of manual workers. So they work. The old they will say, "I work my fingers to the bone to send you to school." They do, like, there's some truth in that because I'm sending you to school so you don't have to do the backbreaking work that I had to do. But the thing about that is they may not necessarily be in a healthy environment when they move beyond what you can see. Your vision may only be, all right, this paycheck and the next paycheck and the next paycheck. All right, this many more payments until the mortgage is done. This many more payments until the school fees paid off. Like you may not be able to see beyond. Once they graduate, they will do this because you may not have been able to try to traverse those experiences for yourself or those arenas for yourself. So maybe you can't see as far as they can go. You're essentially sort of pushing them into the dark because you can't see that far ahead of what's going on. Which is why even if you're not necessarily educated, it pays to research like the field or the ladder or the niches that your children can occupy. And like Chief Yuya I just did, we need certain things in the community. Every community needs something. You see it a lot with Chinese. They say you're doing this. That's that. You're gonna be this. So it's not really a stretch to say, well, we don't have any doctors. We're gonna need a couple of doctors. We need a few engineers. You know, we need a couple more teachers. We need, we may need some designers. We may need architects and contractors. You know, whatever your community needs, education can help to provide that need, but it has to be like the power of one, right? It has to be focused, and you have to be focused on the one thing that you're doing as opposed to doing 6 or 7 different things. You know what I mean? I I probably forgot a lot of the skills that I learned just to do a job, you know, just to perform at a job. I may have had that job for like a couple of months, maybe a year, and I do it. Then I've had so many other jobs after that. If you put me back in that first job, it's like, I don't remember how to do this because there's not necessarily any continuity there for me, you know. Um, Certain jobs I still carry a few skills from. Like at one point as a dishwasher, I washing dishes ain't nothing for me now, but maybe I'm not supposed to be washing dishes. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not something that I need to be spending time doing when there's other things I need to do as an architect. Um, Sister Deidre says, I would say, yes, I'm a professional. At the same time, I'm a wage earner. Well, is the field that you're in right now, earning wages, contributing to your profession? You know, like, what is your profession? You know, and does that align? And does it help you to rise above your current station? Um, Sovereign Eat says, I am not a professional because someone who professes, even if it's a passion, constantly extends beyond what they were innately wired to do. They build up skill sets for greater opportunity. Yeah. Um, but if you profess something, like I said, professing something and having something, um, and having or even having the highest level of that thing, they don't necessarily um, they don't necessarily need to be separate, but they can, you know, work hand in hand. But you're always evolving, you know. So if I say now I'm an artist, I don't know who in the chat would deny it, you know, or who in the chat would be like, you know, artist, he whack, you know, get out of here, B, you know, artist. So I sound like old old New York rappers, like get out of here, B, you know, artist, you know. But you can't tell me I'm not. I may not be head of the field, but the profession is this is what I do, and all of the all of my efforts and all of my energy should feed into that. You know, they should feed into that, and that's what's going to help me to become an even greater professional. So, like I said, it's not something that you have like okay, I have this solid thing. I have a rock in my hands. You know, even that rock is going to erode eventually. You know what I mean? Everything is changing, and you have to make sure that it moves in the correct direction. So let me see. We got a couple of comments. Let me see if I can get all these right quick. Sister DJ says, once the wage earning is severed, I can take the skills that I acquired and use them to better serve my community. So maybe a professional in the making. I'll take it. uh, Hamza L says, I'm a craftsman transitioning into a professional. Okay. Um, what's the difference? You know, what's the difference between a craftsman and a professional? You know, can you be a professional craftsman? Imanaya says, I work a job and earn ways to pay my bills. Writing and crocheting are the creative things I do that can eliminate my job. Okay. Julia says Naya has been one of the most sought after magician's assistants in the DMV area for the past 20 years. Tell them about that, sis. Yeah, even Naya been holding out on us. So Sister Sovereignty says the youth then are taught to live as survivors or for survival rather than being developed for positions of power. Right, exactly. And this is something that we want to develop them for, because what else we doing? Why are you having children just so they could be weak for the rest of their lives? The goal is for them to be able to rise to a position of power, and what it feels like to be to not have. So if you know what it feels like to not have what you need, and you know what it feels like to say, this is something that needs to happen, but you go like months, years, decades without being able to manifest it, eventually you have to step back and ask yourself, well, why? Why can't I manifest this thing? If I've been professing it for years, maybe this thing isn't for me. Those are the type of thoughts that start to creep in your mind. If you don't have that forward motion, and movement, if you live like a durational life, as it's been said a few Shemas ago, if you live a durational life and you wait for things to come to you, or you wait for things to happen, or if things in your life start manifesting, you blame other things around you, but you don't take responsibility for what it is that you profess, because profession doesn't necessarily always come from your mouth. Like if I say something to you and your face starts contorting and shifting, I have to start like, what's wrong with you? Because it's like you interrupted me. You're already speaking with your face, or you're speaking with your hands, or you're speaking with, like, if I'm washing dishes, this is what I'm doing, washing dishes. With your hand's supposed to be moving. Your hand's supposed to be moving like this. What you doing, making these circles? So even your body language still professes what it is that you do, and practicing what it is that you do, even speaking what it is that you do. Like it says in the preface, read it out loud every day. Try to do that with your profession. If this is something that you do, set aside time for yourself every day to say, I think I first heard this term from Chief, but like, these are my workshop hours. These are the hours that I use to master my craft, every day, or, set aside a time for one day, and just start slowly building it and slowly transitioning yourself, however you need to do it. It's just like doing push-ups. I can only do one now, but 2 straws from now, I'm going to be pushing up 50 like it's nothing. So yeah, skills of manual labor should not be shunned. All Anu should be skilled craft persons, right? So I'll leave that there. Let me go in the chat. Some stuff is happening. Hamza L. Every family has a natural gift embedded in the blood. My grandfather was a carpenter / farmer, and all of his sons know how to work with their hands building homes. Right, exactly. You should be able to do that, but you shouldn't have to do that to survive. Peace, Jeremiah. Chief Yuya says, those who profess without application are classified as amateurs. The ama comes from amor, love, which means you just have the desire, but no real skin in the game. Exactly. There was a speaker, he was telling the story when he got off, when he went to see his brother. His brother was in a band, and he admired the pianist. So when they were having lunch afterwards or dinner afterwards, he was like, I thought it was amazing what you did. I wish I could do that. And the pianist looked at him and was like, no, you don't. So, he's kind of taken aback. He's like, no, you don't. If you wanted to be able to do this, you would practice the way I practice, and you would be doing it. I practice for 8 hours a day, and I still have to practice. No matter how many times I perform, I still have to put in that work. I still got to lose some skin, and a lot of people do, have that amateur mindset where I like it, but I don't necessarily want to spend the time learning it, So usually they go on YouTube and it's like, all right, today's the day, let me watch this tutorial, 6 or 7 hours in, it's like, why can't I do it yet? That guy made it look so easy. I ain't doing this no more. you know, um, So Renee, yes, doing several things can weaken our potency in that one area that we should be developing. It's like that popular saying, jack of all trades and master of none. Yeah, yeah, man. That's a part of that resistance as well. You may scatter what you're doing, and Chief has touched on this on the podcast that I mentioned earlier. You scatter what you're doing, and you take pride in that multitasking, but you don't necessarily dedicate to one thing, and that's what really stifles you. You see it as like a superpower initially, but it's just like the amateur. You have a love for many things. You're a whore, basically. You go on whoring after all of these different skills because you think it would be cool to be able to do something, but you don't necessarily have a true connection with it, because it's not in you. You just want to attach yourself to it as opposed to professing it, letting it come out of you. Um, oh, talking to the brothers. All right. Chief Yuya says, in certain parts of the world you go to, all men can hunt, farm, and build. All the women can farm, cook, trade, and heal. Those are their base qualities, and then they specialize afterwards. Yeah, was our base qualities. I could do reading, writing, arithmetic. Once you could do those three, you good, right? Um, TBA also says, I would prefer if men needed to have to work with their hands to survive. We would be able to distinguish males from females much easier that way. Some males shamelessly coast on the effort of men. That is true. Yeah, that is true. I've seen many cases where people like they just suck up, you know, and they suck up to who they think has power. But the person they usually think has power is like the person with no character. They're just loud and obnoxious, and they figure, well, they're still here, so they must have some sort of power because the space hasn't pushed them out yet. But that lets you know what kind of space you're in too. But also I don't want to say, there are, I'm trying not to curse. All right, in the Bahamas, we call it lichen man, right? Or lotioning. You lotioning meaning you're playing someone so close, it's basically like you lotion on the skin, you know. And people do that, like, I think in the States they'll call it brown nosing. It's a similar concept. You're under someone or you place yourself under someone when you're not like beneath them, but you put yourself beneath them because you don't necessarily want to stand on your own 2 feet. Um, all right, let me try to mosey on. Okay. So similar to the example, right? Being inside of spaces where you don't necessarily um, belong there because you're of a contrary spirit, right? So our children must be educated in a manner so that they are not forced to work alongside those of who are of contrary spirit and culture. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you work around people who aren't kind or people who are mean or anything like that, but it may be Taco Tuesday, and they just have a big bowl of ground beef in the center of the table, and that's what everybody's eating. Like certain places I used to work, they'd be like, "What's for lunch?" As in, all of us ordering together, all of us, we're going out for food at the same time. It's just a simple example, dealing with food. I don't eat with Jolly. I walk up the street to the supermarket. It's sort of like the example of profession, because I should be able to walk outside to my garden on my lunch break and get some fruits, or I should be able to be in an environment where I can make moves, I can make money, but if need be, I still have access to food and to people who are of the same spirit, with the same culture. So let's see. Aki Hamza says, my grandfather never made the transition to professional, that would allow his son to not become wage earners. Now, instead of being owners of a family brand, they have to fight. They have to fight the same battle as he had to. Yeah. I know how that goes. I came up in a similar position. So yeah, I know how that goes. Dr. Gertrude says, mastering your true skills gives pride in oneself. Yeah. Oh, don't forget to like and share, and share a live clip. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, Dr. Gertrude, you definitely have. I think Chief did. This was a while ago. This was like 2015. I think Chief did a segment on self-esteem versus self-efficacy. And that self-esteem is like you just feel good, as opposed to self-efficacy where like it's like wisdom. You did something and you have the ability to do it. So that level of self-confidence, it comes from the fact that you trust yourself more, because trust is built over like observable behavior. I know that I can do this. You know what I mean? And it can start from humble beginnings. It can start from a simple place and build itself up. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, I have it or I don't have it. Now, are you a professional? It could be perceived as not perceived. It is a very close-ended question. Are you professional? Yes or no? But being a professional in and of itself, it just means that you profess something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best around. Karate Kid. You're not necessarily the best around, but you're working towards that. And that gives you a clear goal to keep yourself moving forward. And every step that you take, you have an opportunity also to improve your character. So now you're not working for praise. Your character is developed because you're working with sincerity. You really want to see like how far can I take this? What's the right step to make here? How do I solve this problem properly? As opposed to just working for praise, or even working in a way where you don't have integrity. There are lots of reports of like, take my field, right? Art. There are lots of reports of artists like plagiarizing. You see it all the time. An artist sees something like, they may not plagiarize the whole thing, but let's say Lo and I do the anime breakdowns, and there are a couple of there are a couple of instances in that field or in that industry where people would like trace other artists' work. Like, let's say I don't have time to make something, you know, I would basically trace over what someone else did, but I would change the facial expression, you know, or I would see a symbol in someone's artwork. I'm like, well, I want to do it like, it's just what artists do. Artists steal. You know what I mean? We look at things and say, all right, I can use some parts of it and add some other parts, make this weird hybrid thing, and that constitutes an original idea, which is, you know, what people typically do. But sometimes those original ideas, and Chifa told me this the very first time we ever spoke, um, you know, that real art, it comes from the unseen, you know, is not necessarily what you look around and see and try to copy. You know, your profession comes from the unseen realm as well. It's not you looking out and saying, well, I can do that. You know, I can do that. You know, you know, it's something that the Most High has planted inside of you. You wouldn't be walking the planet if you didn't have something that everyone else did not. You know, there's something to your variation of what a human being is that expresses what the planet needs and what your community needs. And doing that is way more beneficial than just trying to do what's popular or doing what works. Where's my camera? Doing what works. You know, but yeah, if you move in that way where you're always moving based on a trend, then you find that you come into and lose positions of quote unquote power a lot. You know, what you do is in original, it's not classic. You know, as some would say, you know, it bears the mark of what other people spiritual feet, you know. So children's careers should lead them into positions of power. How does that look when a lot of us, we're not even looking to be in positions of power. We're looking to get out of a position of powerlessness, you know, and it's similar to the pride segment that she did, where your pride may not necessarily be about feeling good, but it's just about not feeling bad. You know, it strikes me as a similar sort of vibe or a similar sort of mentality or a similar sort of spirit. You're not really looking to move. You just don't want to. You don't want to be so stagnant that you get cut off. You know, so you're like at the tail of the snake, as Chief had said. Um, you know, you're not at the head of the snake. You're at the tail. You're not the leader. You're not looking over the horizon to see what's coming next and making plans for it. You're just like, you got holes in your boat and you're trying to, you know, throw all the water out so you don't sink. But yeah, those positions of power are very important. And I immediately began thinking of certain ethnic groups when I saw that, because there are certain people who won't say it, but Chief has spoken about how you seldom see them starting at the bottom. You know, they always start like mid-tier and then they start going up. You know, because their parents make sure that they put their children in a position of power. And Anu's child's learning has to ensure that they, excuse me, and Anu child's learning must ensure that they are provided lucrative careers at the head of their fields. So a lot of times when we go to school, it's like daycare, and it's a very messed up sort of daycare because there's too many children to take care of. So what happens is there's no transition into adulthood, and you leave that place not only are you still a child when you leave it, instead of being, groomed for adulthood, which doesn't necessarily happen until maybe in college, if you find, someone to teach you properly, which would be rare because they're basically going to teach you to do what the school is supposed to teach you, which is train you to work for the state. No matter what happens, you've got to work for the state. So if you go through that process, if you go through schooling or any type of educational system, and what it does is stifle what you are and tell you that you can only do these things, and your form of rebellion against that is to do other things that you see other people doing. But a position of power leads me deeper into spiritual perfection, guaranteeing self-sustainability for my family and subsequent community. As power doesn't negotiate, that position removes resume waving. Yeah, man. And again, the schooling system, it takes you out of that position of power. Your spirit has to be super strong to survive that environment and still like have some sort of bearing, because by the time you get out of it, even if you have some sense of self-awareness, you get out of it like in a tailspin. Your learning isn't necessarily geared towards saying, I'm going to be this, and everything that I do in school is leading me towards being that. Like our chief mentioned earlier, you have the base skills and then you have your specialization. You don't necessarily have that in, like, I didn't have it. We go to government school. It's like public school. I went to government school. They don't necessarily teach you that. They're trying to meet, they're scrambling to do their jobs, in terms of meeting their own quotas. They're not taking, when I say they, I mean administrators and staff. They don't necessarily have the time and energy to pour into each child individually. Like someone's gonna get left, someone's gonna get left behind. You know what I mean? It's actually getting dark. Yeah, but someone's gonna get left behind if you have a system like that where you, like, I want to help you, but I don't have the time. Compound that with all the home drama that children have, and the parents. You have a lot of broken homes, you have a lot of messed up communities, and all of these people are getting poured into one building, basically. So you got all of these problems that's festering. Not only do the parents have to deal with counseling children, they also have to deal with conflicts that will inevitably arise from, just lack of emotional maturity. It's not there because the parents don't teach it because they don't have it. All of these things are just like side effects of poverty, which will be covered in the next strong. But yeah, all of these things are side effects of poverty, where you don't necessarily have any grasp of the direction that your life is heading in because you're so focused on keeping your life from just, sliding off of the road. It's like one of my teachers, he's Jamaican, and he was telling me that one time he was coming down from the mountains, and they have like really narrow streets. It's like basically a one-way street. And you're coming around the side of a mountain. Some of the mountainsides, they don't have like railings on the side, so you get too close to the edge, that's it. And he said he was driving, and he was just, he was thinking, and then he like looked to the left, and he could see like his tire going ahead of the car. So it's like at that point, it's like, am I going to try and steer into the proper direction, or am I just going to keep myself from running off the road? Because like I'm already at a certain speed, I'm going downwards, so gravity ain't helping. I'm only trying to keep my head above water at that point. Yeah, man. Today's price is not yesterday's price. Exactly. you know. Yeah. So let's see. So since children have to be at the head of their chosen fields, I want to ask you all a question. May not necessarily have the answer right now. May take some research, but look into it. You know, who's the head of your chosen field? Meaning, when you think of the highest level, if I think about the highest level of basketball player, I I don't know objectively if he is the best ever, but immediately first thing you think of is Jordan, right? And that right there speaks to a level of success because he may not objectively be the best, you know, or he may objectively be the best. I don't know. I never played him, but his name like came like that. Who's the best basketball player? Jordan. You know. So yeah, who's the top of your field? You know, and it may be multiple people. You know, and that may let you know what sort of niche you fall under. Because if someone asks me who's the top of your field, um, I can immediately think of my favorite artist, but I don't necessarily know who does what I do the best because I may not be doing enough of what I do to know what I do. You know, that's a part of being a professional too, finding your niche. You know that you're supposed to be going down the stream, but you may not necessarily know exactly what the form of expression that that thing inside of you is going to manifest itself as. Chibuya says that survival mode keeps adrenal glands active along with noradrenaline and cortisol, so you're unable to make intelligent decisions for your future beyond immediate survival. Exactly, you know, and you have the residual stress. Like it's almost like a programming after a while. You know, even after the stress triggers are gone, the cortisol is still there. You know, you're still stressed. So you may be dealing with mundane situations like in a very extreme way. And there's very little economy of energy there. You know, you lose a lot of energy just okay, I don't know this person. Yeah, I don't know. I might need to take a Google break. Who's Graham Bingham's? Oh, I feel like that's someone I should know. I don't know why. Like, let's see. Make this interactive Shema. Yeah, he looks like he could throw down. Oh man, excuse me for one moment. Sun is setting. Oh man, Graham Bingham's. Yeah, I gotta follow him on Instagram. He look like a beast. Yeah, but the sun is setting. You know, Shabbat Shalom. If I haven't said it before. Yeah, Ross Kush. Study the greats. Um, can't get the image on my head. No. Sovereign Each says, in truth, the educators are not professionals in special. The educators are not professionals in specialized areas. So young men and women are given generalized sets of information in most institutions. No financial or executive functioning skills. That is very true. You know, there is actually a documentary. Um, oh boy, it's escaping me. But it was about this high school in California. Um, oh, most likely to succeed. I think that was the name of it. Um, there was a school in California, high tech high, and they had a lot of project based learning. And what they would do is they would bring in professionals, right? And the professionals would teach the class, and they would basically teach them while they were doing a project, which I thought was really great because they have something practical to walk away from the experience with, as opposed to just having a bunch of information that the teacher may have read. I don't know why I keep looking at the chat. You have a bunch of information that the teacher may have just read right before they get into class, and some of them teach with the book in their hands. Like, yeah, it's like, hold on, you shouldn't need that book. You should be doing this every day, let alone you're someone who should be teaching it every day. So why do you need the book? I was wondering the same, but I'm not going to ask the same. Sounds suspicious. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, who's the top of your field on the radio? Y'all don't trust me. Jordan can't mess with Cream E. Biggums. Hamza L. He is not currently the best. We can't be so enamored by the past where it intimidates our ability to strive for even better. We use the past accomplishments as fuel to do better. We are the best. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It should be your floor. That should be like the base level skills. That should be like a base level skill. To say this is where the greatest has reached. Okay, I need to strive for that. And it helps to humble you too, because you're not necessarily moving like an amateur. You may be above the level of the average amateur, but you're thinking like a professional, because you're thinking someone out there has been able to reach a higher level that I've been able to attain. Even if it's comparatively so. I may not be the best at animating, but I know that there's a level of skill that's higher than what I've attained in what I do, based on the fact that I've seen, okay, this person is really doing it and they're not stopping. Then you look at your work, and it's not like comparing yourself to someone else. It's more so there's actually room to grow. It helps you to enhance your vision. Sometimes you need that Rafiki experience. It's like, look harder. Peace, Sacred Step. Peace, Yolanda. So, wow, everybody piling in. Peace, Brother Low. You want to know who Queen Biggins is? That's the greatest basketball player of all time, walking the planet right now. Yeah, you just Google him. Yeah, but yeah, moving ahead, yeah, without education, we're destined for poverty. Bottom line. And again, this whole paragraph, a series of very short, direct statements, and I think it's very helpful, because there's not that much room for like meandering. Excuse me. Without education, we're destined for poverty. Period. And we're a community of professionals. Period. All I know are skilled craftspersons. Period. These things help you to. There's like that chapter on the declarations of truth. It helps you to formulate in your mind how you move, and it eliminates how you don't move. As an animal. Yeah, look harder. But yeah, that would be it for this SHEMA in terms of the chapter. But in terms of the education piece, you are destined for poverty because the education brings out what is inside of you. It brings out what you should be professing. You know what I mean? Or not should be. It brings out the thing that you profess. You can only profess what's already inside of you. Like I said earlier, if you try to profess something that's not in you, or that you don't have any willingness to put in the work for, you'll be an amateur. You'll be at the bottom of the food chain getting coffee for people. and not in the sense that, like, if I get around some really dope professionals or people who are at the highest level, I'll get some coffee, you know, but I'll get some coffee while I'm picking up the gems. I'm not just getting coffee because I want someone to pat me on the head and tell me how good the coffee tastes. Raskush says the greats have obtained and utilized the formula to unlocking embedded potential. We have that ability to apply. We have the ability to apply that in the creator's intended role for ourselves. Yeah, but that formula, it comes through character. You don't necessarily unlock what's inside of you if you can't um, take a punch. If you can't take it when someone says something direct to you, or if you can't take criticism, or if you're too shy or scared to put anything out there, or to do what it is you say, like what it is you profess, or you're afraid to fail after you professed it, as opposed to seeing it as a part of the journey. So yeah, the formula is there. I definitely agree. The formula is always there. Yeah, the best shooter in the D all day. Yeah, man, for sure. I don't see any more comments, and I'm all out of sentences. But definitely give thanks to everybody coming through. We have a lot of stuff going on, and I know things have been very active. We're still we're gearing up for our summer retreat. And we have a really great article on anulifeglobal.org, which is the website for the ministry. And it recaps what we did on our last retreat. Which was I didn't want it to end. I was upset when I got on the boat to come back. But yeah, definitely go ahead and check that out. Like I mentioned earlier, Chief Yuya has, I think he put out 2 podcasts within the last 7 days. One of them deals with the word, and the other one deals with the power of one. Definitely check those out as well. We still have the Anu Youth Initiative coming up ahead. So these are classes for young people. Again, check out anulifeglobal.org to get all your information there. If you would like to be a part of ANU, you see what we're doing, you like the information, you want to learn more, you can definitely get some more information there as well as information on how to sign up for sponsorship. It's not, we don't necessarily take in members by a cohort, but if you apply, one of the members can sponsor you, and you will come in through that sort of avenue. We also have a lot of stuff coming up, like things that we do throughout the Strong. Tomorrow, Yom Rishon, first day, we have our midday motivation at 12. But before that, we also have right up on the screen, Anu Radio, right? So Anu Radio with DJ Smoney, for the lowest here to say it. DJ Smoney, she's gonna be on the ones and twos with a great mix. It usually helps me to get started on my days because I work on first day, but I don't feel like being work on first day. You know what I mean? And it reminds me, well, you profess something, right? So the music really helps to connect you with the spirit, and it reminds you that you're moving somewhere. I know it's a movement. You're moving somewhere, and you got to make sure that all of your steps are firm and they are in alignment with what you profess. What you profess has to be in alignment with the Most High and what He's put inside of you. So with that, I'm gonna mosey on out of here. Peace again. Give thanks for everybody coming through. If you came in late, be sure to check the replay, like, share, and subscribe, and check out all the different things we got going on. Oh, I'm missing some stuff. There's also the breakdowns, right? So coming up, we have, here we go, brother Luke, DJ Shmoney. We also have a few other things coming up in terms of next month. I think this month, the month of May, um, dealing with a lot of the women. No, it's next month of June, dealing with a lot of segments from the women. Um, the movie breakdowns, with Brother Logue that we usually have on Thursdays. They're going to be breaking down some of the films too. So I'm looking forward to, seeing what they bring to the table, seeing what they break down. But yeah, with that, definitely give thanks for everybody coming through. Peace out. Shabbat shalom.